Okay then, time to follow up on the Paris Eternal situation. So, recently we've been seeing a lot of moves out of the Paris Eternal. First of all, we saw a lot of the Element Mystic boys, who are now going over to the Dallas Fuel, and then we saw the posts from Soon, Nico, and Benburst, saying that they were looking for other teams as well, which was a surprise to us considering we thought we were going to see an all-Western Paris Eternal, and we thought they might keep that French talent, and now all of a sudden they're going as well. So, the question is, what is going on at the Paris Eternal? And I found very interesting a tweet, or a tweet longer, from a person called Mandolin, and they are an admin for the Paris Eternal Discord. Now, full disclaimer, I'm reading from her tweet longer here, and she doesn't work for Paris, but she is an admin on their Discord, and everything she says is her opinion or understanding based on what she knows. Anyway, so let's have a look through this. It's a very long post. And so if you want to have a full look at it yourselves, then I recommend that you go to the link in the description, read the tweet longer and the entire thing, because otherwise this is going to be a really long, in-depth video if we go through it all. Obviously, she goes through about the thing of, in the inaugural season you have to pay $25 million to get into the league, and then for expansion teams, which Paris Eternal was one of them, it was between $30 to $40 million. And that's just a fee for getting through the door, right? It's not including salary and benefits and housing and stuff like that. That's all for stages afterwards. So let's talk about a more isolated thing. And the other day we talked about the salaries and everything that players were getting this year in the league and how they'd gone up. And she mentions this. So the average salary was $106,000 and the median salary was $92,000, both up about $10,000 more than the previous season. So, to use friendly numbers, let's say a team had 10 players, this is what she said, this is her words. That's around $100,000 more than the previous season just on player salaries. Now, the median salary, that's $920,000 in total. This does not include coaches, managers and staff. This does also not account for benefits, accommodation and travel expenses. So, this means that what she's saying is there's a lot more expenditure because salaries are on the increase. And understandable. So let's carry on, shall we? Homestands, and this is where the interesting numbers come in, right? On average, teams were hosting 3 events each. The event spaces themselves had an average capacity of 2,500 spectators at around $100 a pop for the weekend. Generally in event planning, you budget based on half capacity. Obviously, you'd love to sell out your venue every time, but things don't always go that way. So 3 homestands, average ticket price, half capacity, that's $375,000 in ticket sales. Add in revenue from merchandise add-ons like meet and greets, and you're probably looking at least $500,000 from the homestands. Obviously, there are operating costs and all, but friendly numbers. Okay, so in this instance, he's saying, well, you feel confident you can eat the cost of an extra $100,000 in extra salaries because we'll be pulling in at least $500,000 from the homestands. But then COVID happened and all of that future income disappeared. Okay. She goes on to say, homestands were the only real way for teams to make revenue this season. From what I remember, teams get very little, if anything, from Fnatic's merchandise sales, with the exception of merch sold at their homestands. And even if they did get a cutback from the online merch sales, sales were down a ton, mostly due to increase in price, but also because no one actually likes Fnatic's and their laughable low quality products. The league outpricing their fans through, though, is a topic for another day. Completely agree, the Fnatic's thing with the Overwatch League is not great, is it? Let's be honest. But, you know, that's something else, and it is disgusting that the teams don't get a fair share of that. But then she goes on to say that now there's other official merch available from places such as Alt ULT, like the somewhat recent Neon 90 shirts and hoodies. Again, from her understanding, teams had to pay a fee to be represented in that line. Then they then would get a cut of the sales. But if they're already hurting for money, they aren't going to go and spend more. This is why sometimes with these collections, not all teams are included. Same thing happened with last year's 3K jerseys, the away jerseys. Not every team wanted to spend money for the right to have a 3K jersey and spend money to have the jersey designed. Oh boy. So what this says is teams are not only having to pay to get into the league. They're having to pay to get into extra lines like this. And this is why some people were questioning in 2019, well, why have some teams got third shirts and some teams haven't? Because some teams just didn't pay. They did not want to pay to be part of these lines. And I completely understand that. And I think it's disgusting from an Overwatch League perspective that they are going to create merch and not automatically include these teams that have paid tens of millions of dollars to be part of the league. I think that's utterly disgusting and it needs a serious look at. But this is a final sentence in that paragraph, and it is very key. The other ways for teams to earn money is by sponsorships. Some teams, like Paris, don't have any sponsors though. So again, no money. It's a very short sentence, but it's a very, very key sentence. Like, it's a massive sentence, and we're going to come back to that one. So, she goes on to say about the tournament. Yes, they won the tournament, but the prize money was only $50,000. Contractually, at least half of that had to be divided amongst the players, so the org maybe got $25,000. In the larger scope of things, that ain't much. Of course it isn't. Paris was paying around $4,000 a month per apartment, with 2 players/staff per apartment plus a practice room. That is around $40,000 a month just for the accommodations. To save on costs, they were also leaving behind players who wouldn't play at homestands, like Sparkle before he turned 18 and Cruz since he was benched. Someone had to also babysit Sparkle. This was not uncommon for teams this season. A lot of them left behind anyone they didn't think was going to be needed, including some coaches and staff. Then we move on to unexpected healthcare costs, and she goes on to say that in February and March, the team wasn't well, and because obviously it's America, it's not like the UK or anywhere else that has free healthcare, they had to pay for the healthcare and get them sorted out. So that's, that's another outgoing. So more specifically about Paris, and this is worrying. This is worrying from a Paris point of view. Paris was already running a pretty tight ship financially. Our team did not have the staff to enter to the same extent as other teams. Did you notice that we didn't really have any content this season? That's because all of our videos came from Avala. That's because we didn't have a dedicated content team. Last season, we were contracted with the LT, who would plan, film and edit all of our videos. They even ran our social media accounts. This year, we only had a social media manager and a graphic designer, both who were freelancers on contracts. Both were also covering Paris Eternal, Paris Legion and Contact Gaming, all at the same time. With 9K serving more like a coach than a general manager, this really just left Avala to provide whatever content she could while still fulfilling her duties as assistant general manager. Oh boy. That brings us to Avala, which what many people don't realise is that she's currently doing everything. She is interviewing prospective coaches, running player trials, handling social media accounts, making the farewell videos, etc. So when you at the Paris Eternal with hateful rage and whatever you're going to talk about, you are actually directly atting Avala. And you can imagine it's not easy on her, losing all of her players and staff that she's growing close to, and now she has also to read those messages. And I think Avala is in an incredibly awful position, and I feel for her very greatly. This is no GM wants to be in this position, no assistant GM, and she doesn't deserve hate because she's not the one causing this. But this is a dire situation. So, losing French talent. This is talking about obviously soon Ben Best and Nico. It's their contracts were set to expire on November the 13th, but no one expected an announcement almost 2 weeks early. It's very important to note that contracts expiring in LFT don't necessarily mean that they won't re-sign with Paris. It just means that they didn't settle on their same contract and can now trial with other teams or go looking for offers. Ben Best even specified this in his second tweet, but he's still in talks with Paris, but neither Nico or Soon included that same stipulation. While I tried to be an optimist and have a little bit of hope, this means we may hold on to at least one of them, I also have to be a realist. With all the aforementioned financial issues, I don't think it would be very smart for any of them to stay. The big rumour is that Paris is trying to stay very low budget and possibly only pay the minimum salary, which is $50,000. I can completely understand why, but I also understand paying an Overwatch veteran like Soon the minimum base salary would be absurd and insulting. It hurts, I know it does, but it's far better for these players to find a spot on other teams that can pay them for what they're worth rather than them taking serious pay cuts just for team loyalty. Now is a great time to remind these players that you should love and appreciate them instead of bashing Paris McCourt on their LFT posts. Try giving them encouragement, blah 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 blah. And obviously, and she's right in what she says. If other teams and other orgs see an outpouring of love for a player, it generally helps them get picked up because it shows they've got a fan base. And if you've got a player that not only is a good player but has a lot of people behind them in terms of fans and stuff like that, it means an influx of fans into a team, and that means more shirt sales, it means revenue, it means more supporters, and that is incredibly attractive to a team. So just signing up a player can be more than just, damn, this guy's good at Overwatch. If the player is a brand in themselves and can attract supporters to a team, that makes them an even better prospect. So, what is next? Avala posted in her Discord that she's trying to build up another Paris Eternal that will hopefully make guys proud. Last season, when we went to a mixed roster, there was an uproar that the org was destroying the team, and look how well the season turned out. Right now, it's best just to accept things as they are, continue to support our players that are moving on, and show our appreciation for Avala, FD God, and Exi, who are the only three members still with our org. With the rumours and leaks, it seems very likely that Exi will also be moving on, but until it's official, he is still ours. From what I've seen, apparently, he has declined an offer from Dallas Fuel, because he prefers to stay on a mixed roster. Interesting. So Exi has declined, apparently, the Dallas Fuel because he doesn't want to be on an all-Korean roster, he wants to be on a mixed one, which is somewhat surprising. Obviously, he had a good time with the Paris Eternal being on that mixed roster. I think that was his first mixed roster. So this is promising for a lot of teams in the league that want to perhaps try and sign up Exi. I'm thinking of teams like Gladiators or Toronto Defiant or places like that. Although I don't think the Gladiators need him when they have Birdring. But Exi is obviously probably on the market right now. I wouldn't have thought a player of his caliber is going to accept a big pay cut and go for the 50k a week, 50k salary. It's not a week. That's just no. I'm thinking of football in the Premier League. Yeah. So this is a very long post, and I've read through a lot of it, not all of it. And I think if you're a Paris fan, you really do need to look at this because this explains a lot. It explains a lot, and yes, it's not confirmed. It's the talk of an admin on the Paris Discord, but they are close to Avala, and yeah, it is not great. But I want to circle round to the one sentence I picked out earlier, and this was: the other way for teams to earn money is by sponsorships. Some teams, like Paris, don't have any sponsors though, so again, no money. I encourage you, go to the Wikipedia page of the Overwatch League, go to the Paris Eternal, and you'll see under sponsors one name. It's owned by HP, right? That is the sponsor for Paris Eternal, the only sponsor. When you go to the Boston Uprising, you see Gillette, Bose, Samsonite, Helix, Dreamseat. When you go to London Spitfire, you only see Logitech, but London are part of a org. Gaming org, Cloud9 obviously, so they've got a lot of backing. New York, you get T-Mobile, United Airlines, Reese's, New York Tech. When you go to Dallas Fuel, you get things like Jack in the Box, Favor, Jacklinks, Greyhound. When you go to Toronto Defiant, you get Bell, Canon Canada, Universal Music Canada, Skip the Dishes, TD Bank. When you go to Philadelphia Fusion, you get Comscope, Xfinity, Dietz & Watson, Asus Replica Gamers, Rothman Orthopedics, Harrisburg University, NerdST Gamers and AimLab. When you look at all these teams in the league, and that's teams from all different heights in the league. That's Philadelphia Fusion near the top, along with New York. Boston right at the bottom. They've got sponsors, and they've got multiples and multiples and multiples of sponsors. And London is sort of the outlier because of Cloud9. But when you see this, it feels like the Paris Eternal have not financially and sponsorship wise prepared for what the Overwatch League is. It doesn't feel like their sponsorships were ever bothered with. It doesn't feel like they've ever bothered to go and find sponsors, and I might be wrong. But an Overwatch League team needs sponsors, especially one like Paris that doesn't have the big backing of a mega esports corp like Cloud9 or say if it was FaZe or teams like NRG for the San Francisco Shock. There are plenty of big orgs. Well, I say big orgs. I mean, we all remember Optic in Houston, but that was an isolated case, and you got Envy at Dallas as well. If you haven't got a big org like that, you just need to go out and get sponsors. And it seems like Paris Eternal have not done that entirely. And I think that's a big problem for Paris Eternal, and I think it's a contributor to the problems. No doubt that COVID-19 has been probably the biggest contributor to the problems that the Paris Eternal are facing right now. But I think if they'd had a good support structure of sponsors and stuff like that, they wouldn't have had to nuke their team like they have. And I'm not going to beat around the bush. This team, next season in 2021, will most likely be bad, if not the worst team in the league. Because they've got no money. So they're going to have to find players that are willing to take base salary. So they're probably going to have to find some players from Tier 2, Tier 3 Western contenders, and talk about EU and North America. Maybe other places as well. Which means the quality of players maybe is not going to be to the height that they need, which means they are probably going to be competing with the likes of Boston Uprising next season. And honestly, looking at what Boston Uprising are doing, I think they could be worse than them. We could be looking at Paris Eternal being the worst team in the league next season, not through the players' fault. It won't be their fault, just like it wasn't the players' fault at the Vancouver Titans. It'll be because there's no money and no sponsorship, and the org can't pump the money into them for some reason. And this is where we are with the Paris Eternal. This will be us leaving the Paris Eternal discussion for now until we see more roster moves. Obviously, it's just XE and FD God left, and who knows what happens with them. Obviously, when the if XE moves, then we will cover that at some point, whether it be in a transfer roundup or in another video. But I'm going to leave it here for this one because this has been a long video. But yeah, this is what's happening with the Paris Eternal. It is not great. It is very hard to be a Paris Eternal supporter right now, and I'm sure you Vancouver Titans fans can understand their position, although I still think this is worse than what happened to Vancouver earlier this year. And it shows that if you don't have the sponsors and you don't have the backing, your team can suffer, and your team can suffer big time. So yeah, Paris Eternal is in the red, and it's going to take quite a while to turn this around, I think. But for now, thank you guys so much for this video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.